Jake Morrison was eating his morning meal when the emergency alarm went off. The sound made his coffee cup shake on the metal table. He had been the only human-animal doctor on Nexus Medical Station for 6 months now. The alarm meant something bad was happening. He pressed the answer button on his communication device. The screen showed Dr. Veltar, the main medical officer of the station. Veltar was a Zephyrian, which meant he looked like a tall blue lizard that walked on 2 legs. Right now, his blue scales were dark with worry. "Dr. Morrison, we need your help right away," Veltar said. His voice was shaking. "We have a big problem in Containment Bay 7. A shadow maw was brought here. It is badly hurt, but it keeps attacking anyone who tries to help it." Jake put down his coffee and pulled up information about shadow maws on his computer. What he read made him understand why everyone was scared. Shadow maws were some of the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy. They came from a planet called Korthak Prime, which was known as a death world. The creatures were 12 feet tall, black as night, and had sharp teeth that could cut through metal. The worst part was that they could walk through walls for short periods of time. "How many people are hurt?" Jake asked while he gathered his medical tools. 3 medical robots are destroyed. 1 Altarian doctor is badly injured and might die. Dr. Corwin almost got killed but managed to escape, Veltar answered. "The creature's back leg is very damaged. We think it was hurt in a spaceship engine explosion. Every time we try to get close, it goes through the containment field and attacks." Jake thought about this for a moment. "Turn down the lights in the bay to 20%. Also, turn off all the scanning machines. Dr. Morrison, with respect, this is a shadow maw. They are apex predators that kill for fun. Maybe we should just put it to sleep forever," Veltar suggested. "It is a patient that needs help," Jake said firmly. "I will be there in 10 minutes. Jake walked through the clean white hallways of the medical station. He passed groups of alien doctors and nurses. They were all talking in worried voices, making clicking sounds, chirping noises, and musical tones. News about the shadow maw had spread quickly through the station. Everyone was afraid. During his 6 months on the station, Jake had become known for something special. While other alien species were careful and followed strict rules when dealing with dangerous animals, Jake had a gift for calming even the most aggressive creatures. The other medical workers whispered that humans, being dangerous predators themselves, could somehow talk to other dangerous animals. They had no idea how wrong they were about this. Jake had learned long ago that being a predator did not mean you had to act like one all the time. On Earth, he had worked with many dangerous animals: great white sharks, grizzly bears, poisonous snakes, and wild cats. The secret was not to act tough or scary. The secret was to understand what the animal was really feeling. As he walked, Jake remembered his first day on the station. The alien doctors had been surprised that Earth would send a veterinarian to work with alien animals. They thought it was strange that humans cared so much about animals that were not their own species. But Jake had proven himself by successfully treating creatures that other doctors were too afraid to touch. There was the crystal wolf from Proxima Centauri that had been attacking everyone until Jake realized it was just protecting its babies. The acid spider from the Vega system that stopped being aggressive when Jake figured out it was sick from eating the wrong food. The rock snake from Titan that calmed down when Jake played Earth music for it. Each time, the other doctors said Jake was lucky or that humans had some special power. But Jake knew the truth. It was not about being powerful or scary. It was about paying attention and caring enough to understand. When he reached Containment Bay 7, Jake could hear worried voices coming from inside. The bay was one of the largest on the station, built to hold creatures up to 15 feet long. Through the thick metal door, he could hear a low rumbling sound that made his teeth feel funny. Jake pressed his hand against the door scanner. The door slid open with a soft hiss. Inside, he found Dr. Veltar and his medical team standing far away from a large window. They were hiding behind protective barriers and pointing various machines at whatever was inside the containment area. "It has been like this for 3 hours, Veltar explained when he saw Jake. "Every time we turn on the medical equipment or send in a robot, it walks through the wall and tries to destroy everything." Jake looked through the window into the containment area. The lights were dim now, just as he had requested. In the far corner, he could see the shadow maw. It was bigger than he had expected, but something about it made him pause. The creature was not standing tall and proud like a predator should. Instead, it was crouched down low with its legs tucked under its body. Its head was down and its dangerous teeth were closed. Green liquid was dripping from its injured back leg. making a small puddle on the floor. "Has anyone tried to give it food?" Jake asked. "Food?" Dr. Corwin, who looked like a giant praying mantis, made clicking sounds with his mouth. "Dr. Morrison, that thing could tear apart a war machine. Why would we want to make it stronger? Because it is not acting like a predator," Jake said, surprising everyone in the room. "Look at how it is sitting. If it wanted to hunt, its head would be up high, its teeth would be showing, and it would be testing the walls to find weak spots." He pointed at the creature's behavior. "See how it keeps looking at the door? And notice that it only attacks when you send something into its space? This is not hunting behavior. This is fear behavior." The alien doctors looked at each other with confusion. In all their books and computer files, shadow maws were listed as extremely dangerous killers. The idea that one might be acting scared instead of aggressive was hard for them to understand. "I am going inside," Jake announced. The room exploded with worried voices and protests from every species present. Every alien doctor in the room started talking at once when Jake said he was going inside. Their voices mixed together in a chorus of worry, fear, and protest. Dr. Veltar's blue scales turned dark purple, which Jake had learned meant the Zephyrian was very upset. "Dr. Morrison, you cannot do this," Veltar said, his voice high with panic. "The safety rules clearly say that no one can enter a containment area with an apex predator without full protective gear and backup weapons. The safety rules are for predators that are hunting," Jake replied calmly as he checked his medical scanner. "This creature is not hunting right now. This is a scared, hurt animal that does not understand where it is or why everyone keeps trying to harm it." Dr. Corwin waved his thin arms in the air. "But the database says shadow maws are killers. They destroy everything they see." Jake looked at the mantis-like alien with patience. "Databases can be wrong. They are written by people who study these creatures from far away, not by people who work with them up close. I have been working with dangerous animals my whole life. I know the difference between an animal that wants to hurt you and one that is just afraid." Before anyone could stop him, Jake walked to the airlock that led into the containment area. The other doctors watched in horror as he entered the small chamber and waited for the doors to cycle through their safety sequence. "Dr. Morrison, please reconsider," Veltar called through the communication system. "We have already lost too much today." "You have not lost anything," Jake replied as the inner door prepared to open. "You just have not found the right way to help yet." The inner door slid open with a soft sound. Jake stepped into the containment bay, and immediately the shadow maw's head snapped up. 6 bright eyes focused on him with the intensity of laser beams. For a moment that felt like hours, the human and the alien creature stared at each other across the dimly lit room. Jake could feel the watching eyes of every doctor and nurse on the station. He knew that some of them were probably recording this moment, thinking they were about to watch a human get torn apart by one of the galaxy's most feared predators. But Jake was not afraid. He had felt this same feeling many times before. The moment when you first meet a dangerous animal and have to decide if you trust your instincts or listen to your fear. He moved slowly and carefully, keeping his hands where the creature could see them. His movements were calm and steady, like he was approaching a frightened horse instead of a deadly alien. "Easy there, big guy," he said in a soft voice. "No one here wants to hurt you." The shadow maw shifted its weight, and Jake could see the powerful muscles in its legs tense up like it was getting ready to jump. But something made him pause and look more carefully at the creature's behavior. The 6 eyes were not looking at Jake with the focused stare of a hunter. Instead, they kept moving back and forth between Jake and the large window, where all the other medical staff were watching. The creature's head would turn toward Jake, then toward the window, then back to Jake again. "You do not like having an audience, do you?" Jake said quietly. He made a small gesture toward the window. Dr. Veltar, who was watching every movement, understood what Jake wanted. The Zephyrian quickly made the viewing window dark so that the people outside could not be seen from inside. The change in the shadow maw was immediate and amazing. Its rigid, tense posture relaxed. The low rumbling sound that had been coming from deep in its throat became much quieter. The creature's head stopped moving back and forth and focused only on Jake. "That is much better, is it not?" Jake continued talking in the same calm, steady voice he had used with countless frightened animals throughout his career. "All those eyes watching you, all those machines making noise. It probably felt like being surrounded by enemies." Jake took another step closer. He was now close enough to see the details of the creature's injuries. The damage to its back leg was worse than he had thought. Several pieces of its hard, shell-like skin were cracked and broken. Green blood had dried around the wounds, and Jake could see the first signs of infection starting to develop. But what caught his attention most was not the physical damage. It was the look in the creature's strange alien eyes. Despite their unusual shape and color, Jake recognized the expression he saw there. It was the same look he had seen in the eyes of every frightened animal he had ever treated. Pain, confusion, and most of all, fear. "You are not from around here, are you?" Jake continued his one-sided conversation as he slowly reached into his medical bag. "Let me guess what happened. You were sleeping in the cargo hold of a spaceship when something went wrong. Maybe an engine exploded. You woke up hurt and alone in a strange place, and now everyone who sees you runs away screaming." The Shadow Maw's head tilted slightly to one side. The movement reminded Jake of the way Earth cats would respond when they heard certain sounds or tones of voice. It was a curious gesture, almost intelligent. Jake pulled out a small medical scanner, moving very slowly so the creature could see exactly what he was doing. "This little device is just going to take some readings," he explained. "It will not hurt you at all. It just tells me what is wrong so I can help fix it." Through the darkened window, the medical staff watched in complete amazement as Jake activated the scanner. They expected the Shadow Maw to attack, to phase through the walls, to do something violent. Instead, the creature remained perfectly still while the human doctor took his readings. The information that appeared on Jake's scanner confirmed what he had already suspected from looking at the creature's behavior. The Shadow Maw was severely dehydrated, which meant it had not had enough water for a long time. It was also malnourished, which meant it had not eaten proper food. Most importantly, the scanner showed signs of severe psychological trauma that went far beyond just the physical injuries. "How long have you been awake and alone?" Jake asked gently as he put the scanner away and reached for other medical supplies. "Days, weeks? No wonder you are so scared." Dr. Veltar's voice came through the communication system in a whisper. "Dr. Morrison, the creature's stress hormone levels are dropping. Its heart rate is becoming normal." Jake smiled as he prepared the medical supplies he would need to clean and treat the infected wounds. That is because it finally understands that someone is here to help instead of hurt. Jake knelt down slowly, making himself smaller and less threatening to the injured Shadow Maw. The creature watched his every movement with those 6 bright eyes, but there was no longer the desperate panic that had been there before. Instead, there was something that looked almost like curiosity. "I need to clean these wounds," Jake explained in the same calm voice he had been using. "Some of them are getting infected, which means bad bacteria are growing in them. If I do not clean them out, you could get very sick." He held up a cloth soaked with antiseptic solution so the creature could see it. "This is going to sting a little bit when I put it on your cuts, but it will help kill the bad bacteria and make you feel better." The Shadow Maw's head moved closer to examine what Jake was holding. Its nostrils, which were small slits in its face, opened and closed as it smelled the antiseptic. The creature's expression seemed to show that it did not like the sharp chemical smell. "I know it smells bad," Jake said with understanding. "Most medicine smells terrible. But the worse it smells, the better it usually works." When Jake moved toward the injured leg with the antiseptic cloth, the Shadow Maw tensed up again. Its mouth opened slightly, showing rows of sharp teeth that could easily cut through metal. This was the threat display that had terrified the other medical staff. But Jake had seen this reaction many times before in his work with Earth animals. He stopped moving and sat back on his heels. I know. You have had enough of strangers trying to touch you, have you not? Everyone who has come near you has either run away screaming or tried to hurt you with machines and robots." He put the cloth down where the creature could see it and folded his hands in his lap. "Tell you what, how about we make a deal? You let me clean this wound and put some medicine on it, and I promise that no one else will bother you while you heal. No more robots, no more machines, no more crowds of people staring at you. Just me, and only when you need medical care." The Shadow Maw stared at Jake for a long moment. Its head tilted again in that curious way, and Jake could almost see it thinking about the offer. Slowly, very slowly, the creature's mouth closed and its threatening posture relaxed. Jake took this as agreement and carefully picked up the antiseptic cloth again. "Thank you for trusting me. I will be as gentle as I can." When the cloth touched the infected wound, the Shadow Maw flinched and made a soft sound that was almost like a whimper. But it did not attack or try to phase away from Jake. Instead, it seemed to understand that Jake's actions, while uncomfortable, were meant to help. "There we go. Jake murmured as he gently cleaned away the dried blood and infected tissue. You know, you remind me of a grizzly bear I treated back on Earth. Everyone was terrified of him because grizzly bears are huge and have big claws and teeth. But really, he was just a big teddy bear who wanted to be left alone. As Jake worked, he kept talking to keep the creature calm. He told stories about Earth animals, about his experiences on other worlds, about anything that came to mind. The sound of his voice seemed to have a magical effect on the shadow maw, whose stress levels continued to drop according to the monitors outside. The thing about big, scary animals, Jake continued as he applied antibiotic gel to the wounds, is that most people assume they are always looking for a fight. But the truth is, most of the time they just want to be left alone to live their lives. They only become dangerous when they feel trapped or threatened. Through the communication system, Dr. Veltar's amazed voice reported the creature's improving condition. Dr. Morrison, the shadow maw's immune system is starting to work better. Its natural healing abilities are becoming active again. Jake smiled as he wrapped clean bandages around the injured leg. That is because fear is like poison to the body. When an animal is scared all the time, its body cannot heal properly. Remove the fear, and the body can do what it was designed to do. The shadow maw tested its newly bandaged leg carefully, putting a little weight on it. When it found that the pain was much less than before, it looked at Jake with an expression that could only be described as gratitude. "You are very welcome," Jake said simply. "Now let us talk about what happens next." He sat cross-legged on the floor, making himself comfortable. The shadow maw, seeing that Jake was settling in for a longer conversation, lowered itself down as well. Soon, both human and alien were sitting facing each other like old friends having a chat. "I bet you want to go home," Jake said. "This place must seem very strange and frightening after living on a death world your whole life. All these bright lights and clean surfaces and weird smells." The creature made a soft sound that might have been agreement. "The problem is, we need to make sure you are completely healthy before we can send you anywhere. Those wounds need time to heal and you need to get your strength back. You are much too thin, which tells me you have not been eating properly for a while." Jake pulled out a nutrition bar from his medical kit and unwrapped it. The shadow maw's nostrils flared as it caught the scent of food. "This is made for humans, so it might not taste very good to you. But it has lots of protein and vitamins that will help you get stronger." He broke off a small piece and offered it to the creature. The shadow maw sniffed it carefully, then took it with surprising gentleness for something with such fearsome teeth. It chewed thoughtfully, then made a sound that Jake interpreted as approval. "Not bad, right? We will have to figure out what your normal food is supposed to be. I am guessing something with a lot more meat than this nutrition bar." Outside the containment bay, word was spreading throughout the station about what Dr. Morrison had accomplished. Alien medical staff from every department were gathering to watch the impossible sight of a human calmly having a conversation with one of the galaxy's most feared predators. But Jake was not thinking about making history or impressing anyone. He was focused entirely on his patient, planning the best way to help the creature recover both physically and emotionally from its traumatic experience. "We are going to take this one day at a time," he told the shadow maw. "No rush, no pressure. Just good food, proper medical care, and time to remember that not all strangers are enemies." The creature settled down more comfortably, its earlier tension completely gone. For the first time since arriving at the station, the shadow maw looked peaceful. Over the next 3 days, something extraordinary happened on Nexus Medical Station. Jake Morrison continued to work with the shadow maw, who he had started calling Shade, and the results amazed everyone who witnessed them. On the first day, Jake focused on basic medical care. He cleaned and rebandaged Shade's wounds, gave the creature proper nutrition, and made sure it had plenty of clean water. But more importantly, he spent hours just sitting with Shade, talking quietly and letting the creature get used to his presence. "The key is not to rush," Jake explained to Dr. Veltar during one of their daily briefings. "Shade has been through serious trauma. It woke up alone and hurt in a strange place, and then everyone it met either ran away or tried to attack it. That kind of experience leaves deep psychological scars." Dr. Veltar's blue scales showed patterns of confusion. "But Dr. Morrison, it is just an animal. Do animals really experience psychological trauma the way intelligent beings do?" Jake looked at the Zephyrian with surprise. "Of course they do. Fear, loneliness, confusion, pain. These are basic emotions that almost every living creature experiences. Just because Shade cannot speak our language does not mean it does not have feelings." This was a new concept for many of the alien medical staff. In their cultures, intelligence and emotion were closely linked. They had trouble understanding that a creature could have complex feelings without also having advanced reasoning abilities. On the second day, Jake introduced Shade to other types of food. Working with the station's nutritionist, he created meals that were closer to what shadow moths would eat in their natural environment. Shade's reaction to the first proper meal was almost heartbreaking. The creature ate slowly and carefully, as if it could not believe the food was really for it. "How long since you had a good meal?" Jake asked as he watched Shade eat. "Weeks, months? No wonder you were so weak when you arrived here." That same day, Jake noticed that Shade's wounds were healing much faster than expected. The creature's natural healing abilities, which had been suppressed by stress and fear, were now working at full strength. The infection that had threatened to spread throughout Shade's body was completely gone. Dr. Corwin, the mantis-like Thrakari, was fascinated by this development. In all our medical texts, we read that shadow moths have powerful healing abilities, but we never understood that those abilities could be affected by psychological state. "Most healing can be affected by psychological state," Jake replied. "On Earth, we have known for centuries that stress and fear can make physical injuries worse. Happy, relaxed patients heal faster than scared, anxious ones." By the third day, something unprecedented happened. Shade began to show active interest in the other medical staff. When Dr. Veltar came to observe through the viewing window, Shade would look up from its food and watch the Zephyrian with curiosity instead of fear. "It is learning to trust," Jake explained. "Shade is starting to understand that not everyone here wants to hurt it. This is a huge step forward." But the real breakthrough came when Jake decided to introduce Shade to one of the other doctors in person. He chose Dr. Lisa Park, a human pediatrician who had volunteered to help with the case. "Why another human?" Dr. Veltar asked. "Because Shade has learned to trust me, but I am just one person," Jake explained. "If Shade is going to recover fully, it needs to learn that it can trust other beings too. Starting with another human is the safest first step." When Lisa entered the containment bay, Shade immediately became alert. The creature watched her carefully, but there was no sign of the panic or aggression that had appeared when other strangers approached. "Hello, Shade," Lisa said in a calm voice similar to Jake's. "Jake has told me a lot about you." Shade looked back and forth between the two humans, clearly trying to understand this new situation. After a few minutes, the creature seemed to decide that if Jake trusted this new person, then it was probably safe. The real test came when Lisa offered Shade a piece of food. The creature hesitated for a long moment, then gently took the food from her hand. It was the first time Shade had accepted anything from someone other than Jake. "This is incredible," Dr. Veltar whispered through the communication system. "The creature is showing social learning behaviors. It is adapting its responses based on social cues from Dr. Morrison." But Jake was thinking about something bigger than just Shade's recovery. Word about the Shadow Maw case had spread throughout the galactic medical community. Doctors from dozens of worlds were asking for copies of Jake's treatment notes and video recordings of his sessions with Shade. "They want to understand how you did it," Dr. Veltar explained during another briefing. "There are creatures on many worlds that are considered too dangerous to treat. If your methods can be applied to other species, it could change everything." Jake felt the weight of responsibility. He had started this case just trying to help one hurt animal. Now it seemed like his work might affect how the entire galaxy thought about treating dangerous creatures. "The methods are not complicated," he said. "The hard part is changing how we think about these animals. Instead of seeing them as monsters, we need to see them as patients. Instead of focusing on how they might hurt us, we need to focus on how we can help them." That evening, Jake sat with Shade in the quiet containment bay. The creature was resting comfortably, its wounds almost completely healed. Shade's 6 eyes were bright and alert, showing none of the fear and confusion that had been there when it first arrived. "You know, Shade, you have started something important," Jake said quietly. "Because of you, doctors all over the galaxy are going to start thinking differently about creatures like you. You might have saved lives that have not even been born yet." Shade made a soft rumbling sound and moved closer to Jake. The creature gently touched Jake's arm with its head, a gesture that looked remarkably like affection. Jake smiled and patted Shade's hard carapace. "You are welcome, friend. You are very welcome." Outside the containment bay, Dr. Veltar was writing his final report on the case. In it, he would recommend that Jake Morrison's approach become the new standard for treating dangerous alien creatures throughout the galaxy. The age of understanding had begun. 2 weeks after Shade's arrival at Nexus Medical Station, Jake Morrison found himself giving a presentation to the largest gathering of alien medical professionals in galactic history. Representatives from over 50 different species had come to hear about the case that was already being called the most important breakthrough in interspecies medicine. The main conference room was packed with creatures of every shape and size imaginable. There were the tall, blue-scaled Zephyrians like Dr. Veltar, mantis-like Thrakari like Dr. Corwin, crystalline beings from the Vega system, gaseous entities from the outer rim worlds, and dozens of other species that Jake had never seen before. The breakthrough was not in the medical treatment, Jake explained as images of Shade's recovery played on the large screen behind him. The breakthrough was in understanding what we were really dealing with. He clicked to the next slide, which showed brain scans of Shade before and after treatment. When Shade first arrived, its brain chemistry showed extreme stress markers. Cortisol levels were through the roof, adrenaline was constantly flowing, and the areas responsible for healing an immune response were severely suppressed. A crystalline doctor from Vega Prime raised a thin, glass-like appendage. Dr. Morrison, are you suggesting that psychological trauma can have measurable physical effects across all species? Not just suggesting, Jake replied. Proving. Look at these healing rates. The next slide showed a time-lapse video of Shade's wounds closing. Once we addressed the psychological trauma, Shade's natural healing abilities increased by over 300%. Murmurs of amazement rippled through the audience in dozens of different languages and communication methods. Dr. Veltar, who had become Jake's strongest supporter, stood to address the assembly. What Dr. Morrison accomplished challenges everything we thought we knew about apex predator behavior. For generations, we have classified dangerous creatures based only on their potential for violence. We never considered that their behavior might be driven by fear rather than aggression. A Thrakari medical chief clicked his mandibles skeptically. But Dr. Veltar, the databases clearly show that shadow maws are responsible for numerous attacks on shipping vessels and research stations. Jake had expected this question. And those attacks probably did happen. But ask yourself this. What circumstances led to those encounters? Were the shadow maws in their natural environment? Or had they been displaced by space travel, mining operations, or other disruptions to their habitat? He pulled up a new set of data. I did some research into those attack reports. In every case, the shadow maw was found far from its home world, usually in a cargo hold or on a research station. These were not predators hunting for food. These were scared, confused animals defending themselves in unfamiliar territory. The room fell silent as the implications of this revelation sank in. But the real surprise came when Jake announced the next phase of the project. Shade is not just recovering, he said. Shade is thriving. The creature has shown cognitive abilities far beyond what anyone expected. It has learned to recognize voices, respond to its name, and even show preferences for different types of music. The audience gasped as Jake played a video of Shade listening to classical earth music. The massive, fearsome creature was swaying gently to the rhythm, its 6 eyes half closed in what looked like contentment. More importantly, Jake continued, Shade has agreed to participate in a new program we are developing. Instead of sending it back to its homeworld immediately, Shade will help us train other medical professionals in these new treatment methods. Dr. Corwin's antennae twitched with surprise. The creature volunteered. In its own way, yes, Jake replied. When we offered Shade the choice between returning home or staying to help others, it chose to stay. I think Shade understands that its experience can help other creatures avoid the same trauma. Over the following months, Nexus Medical Station became the center of a revolution in galactic medicine. Medical professionals from across the galaxy came to study under Jake and his expanding team. They learned not just techniques, but an entirely new philosophy of care. The results were dramatic. On Rigel 7, a team trained in Jake's methods successfully treated a wounded stardrake that had been considered too dangerous to approach. On the mining colony of Kepler 442b, doctors used the new protocols to help a displaced rockworm that had been attacking miners. In each case, what had seemed like an aggressive monster turned out to be a frightened, confused animal that just needed understanding and proper care. But perhaps the most significant change was in how other species viewed humans. For years, the galaxy had been puzzled by humanity's rapid expansion and integration into galactic society. Humans were clearly apex predators from a dangerous world, yet they seemed to lack the typical aggression and territorial behavior associated with such species. Humans, observed Dr. Kretak of the Altarian Medical Institute in a widely read research paper, appear to be apex predators who have evolved beyond the need for predatory behavior. They understand fear and aggression because they have learned to move past these instincts. This makes them uniquely qualified to help other species do the same. The paper sparked a new field of study called comparative predator psychology, with humans at the center of the research. As for Shade, the former terror of space lanes had become something of a celebrity. The creature now lived in a specially designed habitat on Nexus Station, where it worked with medical students from across the galaxy. Shade seemed to enjoy the attention, and had developed what could only be described as a sense of humor, often startling new students by suddenly appearing behind them through a wall. 1 year after the first emergency call, Jake sat in his office reviewing applications for medical schools across the galaxy. Every major institution wanted to add his methods to their curriculum. His simple approach of treating the whole patient, not just the symptoms, was becoming the new standard. Dr. Veltar knocked on the door and entered with a data pad. Dr. Morrison, I have the latest statistics on treatment success rates using your protocols. Jake looked at the numbers and smiled. Across the galaxy, the success rate for treating dangerous creatures had increased by over 400%. More importantly, the number of incidents involving human-alien-animal conflicts had dropped dramatically. You know what the best part is? Jake said, looking out the window at the stars. We have proven that understanding is always more powerful than force. Fear makes monsters out of everyone, but compassion can turn monsters back into patience. That evening, Jake made his final log entry about the original case. Today marks 1 year since Shade arrived at our station. What started as one scared, hurt creature has become a movement that is changing how the galaxy thinks about dangerous animals. Shade was never the monster everyone thought it was. It was just terrified and alone like any of us would be in the same situation. He paused, then added, I think the most important thing we have learned is that the difference between a monster and a patient is often just a matter of perspective. Maybe that is true for all of us. Maybe the scariest creatures in the galaxy just need someone to tell them that everything is going to be okay. The log entry was transmitted throughout the Galactic Medical Network and became required reading at medical schools across known space. The phrase, "it's just terrified," became shorthand for the human approach to medicine, an approach that prioritized empathy over fear, understanding over assumptions, and healing over hatred. The galaxy was a little less scary and a lot more understanding, because one human veterinarian had chosen to see a patient instead of a monster.